if we know what we're going to cut off when things get tough, the question comes down to, why don't we cut them off now? Mm-hmm. Why do you wait until it's financially stressful to cut instead of saying, you know what, how about I cut now? So then when things do get that way, I'm not panicked. I'm already in a mode that's beneficial. Look, everyone won't be wealthy, but everyone can be basically wealthy.
Yes, indeed. He checks in each and every Wealthy Wednesday at 9:20. They call him Uncle Joe, Joseph Lorick in the building.
Uncle
Joe! Good morning, good morning.
Check this out, Joe.
What's up?
I got people asking me, yo, did I miss Uncle Joe? People coming up to me telling me about, yo, you really make an impact, I'm telling you.
Hey, man, I'm just trying to fulfill my purpose and do what what I was born to do, which is to help people out the best way I can and help my people out specifically because we need more help than anybody else in this country when it comes to catching up to things we should have been ahead of.
Okay.
So I want to make sure to do my part. And with that said, today being Wealthy Wednesday.
Yes, what are you going to school us on today?
Hey, listen, I want to have a discussion a little bit. I want to throw out some facts and stuff, but I want to talk a little bit about what's going on right now in the economy and then specifically how it affects us.
Absolutely.
And, how we should adjust to it. So if you've been awake, okay, I'm not talking about woke. If you've just been paying attention to social media, to news, if you've looked at your family members, talked to people, if you've known people in the tech industry, you know that right now we're seeing a massive amount of layoffs. Okay, just throw out some numbers really quick. Amazon for this year, 27,000.
Wow.
Accenture, 19,000. Meta, 21,000. Alphabet, Google, 12,000. David's Bridal, who's BKO now, they're shutting down some stores right here in Maryland. 9,236 layoffs. 3M, 8,500. Ericsson, 8,500, and Disney, 7,000 layoffs. So these are all layoffs that have been announced. Some of them have already occurred. Some are still occurring since January. And with that being said, we hear about all these layoffs. We know that the economy, we've been going through inflation, and we know that interest rates have gone up. And that's a part of this because cost of operating business is more expensive than before. And that was also part of the reason why the Fed raised the interest rates, to decrease spending and to kind of put the economy in check, per se. But with that being said, what I want to know is when it comes to our personal lives, are we taking the same type of moves to shore up our financial well-being? Are we doing layoffs? Are we doing cutbacks? According to the Commerce Department, we are slightly. In the month of March, our spending declined in retail sales. You had building supplies sales declined by 2.1%, electronic sales declined by 2.1%, and clothing sales also set back by 1.7%. And according to Forbes, also March retail sales in total declined by 1% compared to February. So we're seeing that. And then lastly, let me throw this out there because I've noticed something this year, if you haven't noticed, okay? In the previous years around this time, okay, you see a lot of flexing, okay? People got a lot of money coming in. They're going on vacations. They're getting vehicles. They paying off this and that. Tax time, right? Tax time. But some reason this year, we're not seeing as much of that, occur because according to the numbers, there's been a 10.1% decline in tax refunds this year compared to 2022.
Right. People are getting less back.
Exactly. So we're not just noticing something that isn't there. It is true that people are not receiving as much money as they were just a year ago when it comes to tax refunds. So with all that being said, and of course we hear the talk about a recession coming, about this happening and that happening, I want to know when it comes to these times and you see them coming, you see that they're not far off, are you making personal cuts? And then do you know right now what cuts you would make?
Right.
Because some people don't make those decisions until it's a panic moment.
Yeah.
But I want to know if you guys know ahead of time.
Right.
Like, right now I'm going to cut off this or I will cut off that before things get tight.
Right,
Talk
right.
to me. What do you guys think?
Well, you said the numbers are declining in terms of people buying clothes and electronics. I
Yes.
heard one thing that wasn't declining, though, was the cereal. You know, you said we like the cereal. Is that true? I heard we're still buying the cereal.
We
Well,
still
that's what
buying
happens
cereal.
when people don't eat out.
Well,
Right.
in fact, it would be an increase because cereal is an inexpensive dry good. So you might see people that look, instead of late night, some turkey dinners. I don't know why I said turkey, but some late night dinners like that, they might go to cereal. Like, hey, cereal milk, cereal water, sugar. Do what
Always
you
go
got to
back
do.
to the basics.
Yeah.
baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say for my folks that, stay abreast of the stock markets, that stay abreast of the headlines, conspiracy theorists or not, whatever. But those folks are definitely like, hey, it's coming. Oh man!
Well,
next 6 months,
yeah.
And so a lot of folks are just like kind of, like you said, winding down a little bit, taking it easy.
You don't have to go to conspiracy because these layoffs, one thing I'll say about these companies making these layoffs, it's not because they're reacting to something that's happening now. They're preparing for what's to come. So when we start to see these levels of layoffs, we should say that, okay, if the big companies who study economic data on a regular basis see some type of drawback coming
On the way, right?
then that means that it's probably happening.
Right.
It's a good indicator, but how much it impacts us on an individual level is where it varies. And that's why I'm like, okay, what do we think about on an individual level? And it's no right answer for all people. But it's funny when you start to see people get in that mode of cutting back, what they cut back on. Now, my thing is more speaking to not doing it when you're emotional and in distress. Because when you're in distress, then you make emotional cuts. And I'm not saying they're the wrong cuts, but why do we wait to get into financial stress to begin cutting? I think about these things and I see it all the time. Look, people I talk about, we were talking about it off air. People, when it comes to their dating life, all right, some fellas, they stop dating as much because dating is expensive, right?
And we talked about that. A lot of folks feel like, listen, if I'm not financially secure, maybe it's not the best time for me to date right now, male or female.
That's right.
But you know what? I think more people should do that, but I don't think enough people do that.
Yeah.
It's particularly for a man. If your finances aren't right, then you probably shouldn't be, and then you don't hear those bad stories where he asked to go Dutch and he, if you can't just
Because she will put you on social media.
Right. And you see a lot of that stuff. And skimping that even people going on vacation, like if you can't really afford to do it, then just don't do it.
Yeah, just wait.
Do it when you can.
But that's the key. Knowing that timing is what I'm getting at,
Yes.
is what's important.
Knowing when it's time.
And some of us need to, if we know what we're going to cut off when things get tough, the question comes down to, why don't we cut them off now? Why do you wait until it's financially stressful to cut instead of saying, you know what, how about I cut now? So then when things do get that way, I'm not panicked. I'm already in a mode that's beneficial.
Oh, you know what? A lot of folks are out here just looking for satisfaction and ways to not be stressed.
Right.
And so, they indulge until they can't indulge anymore. And then now it's stress time because now the finances are where they're not supposed to be. You don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Until you have to deal with it.
Yes. There is a tie between mental health.
Yeah, I was just about
And
to
spending.
say. I
You're
think
right.
people are self-medicating.
Right.
And so a lot of people, when you're not at peace with yourself, and you're not at peace with what you have, those people spend a lot of time, effort, and money trying to look like something that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And we see that with social media. Everybody flossing. Everybody want to show you what they're eating, where they're eating. They want to show you the grass wall of the fancy restaurant they were at. They want to show you their car. And it's like, really, you can just live life quietly and enjoy yourself and enjoy the simple things.
Absolutely.
And so being an artist and working like the way me and Erica work, we've used to being, because we know when it's high, it's high.
Yeah.
When it's low, it's low. It only takes one time for you to be foolish with your money. Then when that drought comes, that's a lesson you never forget. And so when we were in the pandemic, I was already living as if we were.
Yeah.
I was already living like that, so it really wasn't that much of a burden for me. In fact, I was able to save and come out of the pandemic with more money.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that, because being a comedian, that's expense heavy.
Yeah.
Traveling, you in hotels, you spend gas, you driving, all these kind of things. I wasn't doing any of that. I ain't had to buy no clothes because at that time we didn't know if the world was going to end. Why do I need a new suit for
Right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you get used to doing those things. And really, the simple answer to your question is discipline. A lot of people don't have the discipline to cut like that.
Right.
And so we get used to living in pleasure.
Yeah.
And we don't do these things until we absolutely are forced to do it.
Absolutely. We have to do a cost benefit analysis on a constant basis. You should always, when I say these companies are doing layoffs, they know ahead of time when it comes down to it, if things get tight, they know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to lay off a certain amount of staff. And it's not personal. It's just they know, okay, this is the part of our business that I can get rid of. So I'm saying that we should know ahead of time what's the part of our lives that we can get rid of. And then when we start looking at it, then we should analyze and see how beneficial is this part to my life, period. Because if I can cut it off so easily, was it really tied that tightly to my mental health? If it was that important, I wouldn't be able to cut it off that easy. See, I'm not saying what makes all the financial decisions, what makes the most financial sense to cut off. No, we usually cut off based on emotions. But I'm saying if you're already feeling that way about something, why hold on to it in the first place? Because the reality is it doesn't mean as much to you as you might believe. And that's where we have to do an assessment. And then you could also look at that as this. When times get tough, that's also when the billionaires and trillionaires soon, but the millionaires and billionaires make the most money because they make investments while everybody's contracting. So that money ahead of time that you cut back on, you could go ahead and move that into something to make it more beneficial. So this is what I'm saying. It's not just cutting something off. Sometimes it's a transition. Sometimes it's taking it from doing this and now I'm going to move this money over here so it means more. Because if it means more, you stick with it. Because then it becomes harder to cut off because I need this as a part of my mental health. I need this as a part of my balance. So what I'm encouraging us to do is exercise discretion. Start to look at the things that you could easily cut off and say, where could I be spending that money today to add? Because one thing you shouldn't be doing is just being in fear. I'm not here to promote cutting back without having a plan to move forward. I'm saying you should do both at the same time. You can cut back, but you can transition that money into something that's going to build more wealth for you. And if that isn't working, cut that off and keep cutting it off until you find something that works.
Right.
But ultimately, we should be able to easily replace the things in our lives that we know tomorrow, if things get tight, you know what? I'm cutting off that trip to this restaurant. I'm cutting off this. I'm cutting off dating X amount of people. I'm cutting off buying certain clothes. I'm cutting off doing this. Okay, if you can do that now, cut it off now and take that money and invest it while people are scared, because the cycles have shown time and time again. That's when the Warren Buffetts, that's when the top investors of the world make the most money. And we need to get on the same program.
Absolutely. It's a word, Uncle Joe, man.
Dropping gems.
Dropping gems.
Yet again, brother.
Yes. Now, the views of Uncle Joe are not necessarily the views of Morgan State University and WEAA. It's the reason why we have him here each and every Wealth Wednesday at 9:20, so you can be fulfilled and, learn something you didn't know yesterday. I know we do every week, so. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure you follow him.
People look forward to Uncle Joe.
I know they're calling in every week, so we look forward to it.
To this man.
So make sure you follow him at Joseph Lorick. That's JosephlOrick. Follow him and make sure you check in next Wednesday for Wealth Wednesdays. We got more on the way. Good morning, Baltimore.